The world of agribusiness has long had futures trading, especially in farming products like grains, sugar and cotton. But futures in the beef industry has usually been regarded as just too hard. Well, there's now a concerted push to establish a world market for boneless beef futures. A meeting on the subject in Brisbane last week attracted Australia's biggest producers and the biggest processors. Also present at their own expense, mind you, were representatives from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the parent body of the Chicago Board of Trade, the world's biggest trader of agribusiness futures. Tim Andreasen from the CBOT told Landline boneless beef futures are essential for risk management.
From both the producer standpoint and from the end user standpoint, it's something that's very interesting to us. We really try to focus on listening to customers and identifying what their risks are and then trying to build products around that.
I guess that's the key, isn't it? The risk management?
Absolutely. Our products are first and foremost hedging tools for commercial market participants. So we're really excited about having an opportunity to be here, to be invited by AECO to be part of this discussion. And this looks like something that's very interesting, and it might make some sense for us to look at developing a product.
Now, will all countries be participating in this? I'm talking about the beef producing countries.
Well, for us to want to launch a product like this, we would certainly want to know that there's global demand for the product. We think that this is something that could be an international product. It makes sense as an international product. So, we've already had a lot of dialogue around it, and we were in South America and Brazil talking about it. We're here. We've been throughout the U.S. So we think that for a product like this to go forward, you would have to have strong international demand.
So an international product, you've got South America, North America, including Canada, of course,
yeah.
Australia, Europe. So the farmer in downtown mid-New South Wales could be trading on a big market.
Well, big markets mean that it reflects global supply and demand, and it also means that there's deeper liquidity. The more participants you have in the marketplace, the greater the liquidity you have. And if you look at our wheat contract or our corn or our soybean contract that are global benchmarks, it's the same situation.
Look, this sounds complex. How long to set up a beef futures trading program that operates around the world?
Well, this is something where we're trying to reach out now to the industry to understand what the opportunity is. It's a whole lot harder to get from it's a great idea to it's a product. And so what we're looking to do is to reach out to the industry to start to pull in ideas to get to where we have what we think is a functional product, then to take that back to the industry and see if we can get buy-in. And if we think there's good buy-in from the market participants, then we look at potentially launching a product.
Would you want to take a guess then 12 months, 18 months, 2 years maybe?
Oh, these things are, 12 months on the short end, 24 on the long end, I'd guess.
Now, that meeting was convened by AECO boss David Farley. He runs about 680,000 cattle. That's big, but he says beef futures are not just for the big players. The smaller producer will benefit as well. Could this be the next big thing for the Australian beef industry?
I think it's the next assured thing that we can start building an industry on margin management. Instead of being price takers, we'll be margin makers. And therefore, we'll become more attractive as an industry to banks, we'll become more attractive to equity capital to come into our industry, and the producer will be able to create margins and price revenues over an horizon instead of living in the spot market today.
Now, you're a big player. Is this for the little player as well?
Yeah, it covers everyone. It will actually create new industries, service industries where you'll have accumulators of small producers coming together. The big guys like ourselves probably doing our own thing. And in cases, we'll bring people into our marketing pools as well.
Now, the beef mooted as the basis for the futures would be 90 CL. That's more or less hamburger meat. And in volume terms, it represents a massive part of world beef trade. I have to say there was a fair bit of enthusiasm for this concept at the Brisbane Forum, but there's a mountain to climb before beef futures become reality. Moving on, and the market spiked big time last week on the back of lower numbers because of all the rain in the east. Most indices recovered recent losses. Slaughter numbers would also have an influence on these prices, 18% below last year and 10% below the 5-year average. Weather has been an issue, but the rise of the dollar is hurting big time. It's just as well there's a lot of feed around. The mostly positive week helped push the ECI, the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator, up 9 cents to $3.91. Now, the live trade out of the north has all but stopped. A couple of boats went out last week to the Philippines and Malaysia. And there's a fair bit of anger among producers in the top end about what was filmed in Jakarta. The anger is directed squarely at the abattoir operators for tarnishing the efforts of the vast majority of Indonesian processors and importers. Now, the best quote I could get out of Darwin is steady on last week, $1.90 for steers and 15 cents less for heifers. In contrast to cattle, sheep and lamb slaughter numbers are up about 9% as a lift on last year. But there's a trend now to retain ewes because producers are now looking very keenly at the price of wool. So prices went up last week. There was also the looming weather issues, processors and restockers getting in ahead of transport and muster problems over the next several days. Turning to grains, and most futures markets were positive last week. Wheat defied production estimates with a nice lift. Corn followed and soybeans, they just keep going up and up. And an odd snippet from the wheat market. Iran, which regularly calls America the Great Satan, has agreed to buy 120,000 tonnes of wheat from the United States, which is even odder when you consider Americans are banned by law from trading with Iran. I'd put this contract in the extremely doubtful category. Prices now, these are now May contracts, but they're all up on the just closed March deal. The bulls are all over soybeans in particular. Now, locally, there's been reasonable activity, but traders here are wary of the massive amount of wheat on offer. New South Wales wheat shed more than $3, while WA wheat dropped $1.50. The ASX reports their wheat futures trading since it started in 2003 is now just shy of 2 million contracts, totalling around 37 million tonnes, a pretty good effort. Back to New York now for the soft commodities, and disappointing export sales pushed cotton down while sugar slipped a fraction. That cotton price is a mile away from this time last year when it boomed to more than $2 a pound, while sugar is about 5 cents below the 2011 price. Finally to wool, where the market rebounded from recent losses. Pass-in rates were half of what they were last week, and the finer wools recovered somewhat from the hiding they got last week. Buyers from China were on top as usual. Italian buyers were very active at the Newcastle sale. The Eastern Market Indicator lifted close to 1% for the week to finish at 1,213 cents. And that's the Landline check on prices.